Welcome everybody. We have a brand new episode here, a brand new series called Who's the Expert? I'm the Expert. With the Experts? With the Experts. So here we are with the experts. I'm with the coffee crew today. This is Roaster Dave. You might recognize him from our package of Roaster Dave Signature Blend. His face right there. And then we have John here as well, who is the, what's John's official title?
John is also, he's the warehouse manager, production manager, and he's also my son-in-law.
There we go, the production manager for the coffee crew. So we're all set up. And so we just have a few questions, and while we've got them in-house here today, they're hanging out all day, so ask a few questions and kind of go down and figure we can learn a little more about coffee. We have this great benefit of being able to talk to them, kind of ask questions, so it's nice to be able to offer that to other people. So earlier today on our Snapchat, which is at Caffeine Kilos. Caffeine Kilos. We asked people if they have some questions. We got a few questions for him. So we're going to go over those as well as some other stuff. So first off, and I'm just going to kind of ask the questions, I guess, to Dave, really, but John, you can jump in anytime you know you have something to add. So what is your preferred brewing method? So like if you want to just make the best cup of coffee you could, like I want to make like, oh, someone special's coming over, you know what I mean? You're going to meet the father-in-law for the first time. You know, something like that. So I want to light him. I know this guy likes coffee, so I want to make sure, like, I'm going to make my favorite way to make coffee. So what is that?
Well, I mean, I really like the French press. I like the mouthfeel, and I like the flavors that it presents. But I don't like cleaning up after it, so I do kind of default to the pour over.
So pour over, okay. Yeah. So your preferred way would be the French press. So you said you like the mouthfeel better, or like the flavor. So you feel like a French press that has a little bit different feel.
Yeah, it does. So? Well, because you get you get more particulates. It doesn't filter out every last grain of coffee, so it gives it a thicker feel when you drink it.
A little more chew on it a little.
Yeah, a little more food-like.
A little gritty. I mean,
a little gritty.
Thicker. I wouldn't say gritty. I would just say thicker.
Gritty, a little more particulate.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Well, that's what it is.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've never before in my life used the word particulate. I said particular. It's totally different.
Well, I mean, the coffee is when it's not when all the little particles aren't filtered out, they're in suspension. So that's in the liquid that you're drinking. So it feels thicker.
Yeah, because it is.
Yes, because it is.
So it feels thicker because it is. We're breaking things down here. Okay. So yeah, so a little more. So particulate. That's the plural of particles.
Yes. Yeah. Or particulates.
Well, particulates. Yeah, very well. Okay. So that's interesting. And so and then, but your most common you said is like a pour over. Like what's your daily driver?
Well, when I'm not just brewing a whole pot, if I only want one cup, I'll do a pour over because it's easy. It's a very clean cup, and it does extract the flavors really well. So
when you're doing that, like what? Take me through it a little bit. So do you heat up the water on like a stovetop, or do you just nuke it?
I heat it on the stovetop. Yeah.
You go stovetop.
Yeah.
Do you use like a kettle? Does it whistle?
I do use a kettle, yes, in fact. But and I always make sure that I change out the water so you don't have any dead water. You don't want to
new water.
Yeah, you don't want to reboil it. So.
Okay. Reboil it might be too sanitary.
Well, it changes the water and it changes the way the water extracts. So like if you're a British tea person, you would never reboil your water. That's faux pas. So yeah, so fresh water every time.
Fresh water every time. So, do you think it matters on the stovetop or if you nuke it in a microwave? Or is it just kind of one of those, like, you feel like it matters?
I feel like it matters. I can't say that I haven't checked that out. All I know is you should use new water. You could probably microwave it, but that's agitating molecules, so I'm not really sure. The jury's out on that.
Jury's out on that. John, any input on microwave or stovetop for heating your water for the coffee?
We do the stovetop also. I don't know.
Yeah, stovetop. So what temperature do you heat it? Do you check the temperature with a thermometer, or is it does a kettle whistle?
The kettle whistles, and I do it just under boiling because I know boiling is 212. So if I don't let it rapid boil, I know I'm right in the neighborhood where I want to be, which is between 200 and say 204.
It's like a simmer.
Yeah.
So you kind of hear it whistling. You check it if bubbles are coming off the bottom. A few small bubbles off the bottom.
Well, I wait a couple of seconds. When it whistles, I'll wait until it calms down and then I pour it.
So so you pull it off.
Yeah.
So you bring it to a boil almost, and then you let the boiling stop.
Yeah.
And once the boiling stopped, then that's between 200 and 204.
Yeah, pretty much. It's close enough.
Now elevation, I think, does that affect that, right? So that's at sea level pretty much.
Yeah, that would be sea level. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if you're not at sea level, then you're going to Google it. Yeah. Because hell if I know, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
No, that's actually a good point. So.
Yeah. There you go. So next episode of Ask the Experts.
Right.
You guys will ask me about elevation and boiling.
Yeah. What is the boiling point of water at 2,000 feet?
I don't know.
I'd have to Google it.
I'd have to Google it myself. Okay. So now that's true. It may not be at sea level. You might be at 80 feet. So maybe your math's all wrong on this. You're making coffee wrong this whole time.
There is a possibility. Yeah, maybe a few degrees off.
We're open to it.
Yeah.
We're open. Might be between 199 and 205.
Yes, yeah. But that's close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades.
Okay, there we go. All right. Now, what's your favorite type of roast?
I am now. I'm more of a light roast person.
Okay.
You know, I've been kind of moving more and more toward the light roast because you get more. You taste more coffee as opposed to the roast. Like if you have an extremely dark roast, you pretty much taste the roast. The coffee is really dark, and
that
you
like
taste
a French roast, for example,
like a
dark?
French roast. Although that's not to say that I will never drink one, but I've been moving more and more toward the lighter roasts.
So about 3.5 years ago, when we first started talking, I remember you saying that at that point I think you said something about a grizzly old man, and I like dark roast. So it's really been over the last 3-4 years been going more towards light roast recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say
since you've been producing the PR blend, which is in fact
a light roast. Yeah. Well, so you may have had an effect on me.
There we go. John, what about yourself? What kind of roast do you prefer?
I think we all, as a whole company, we started dark and then went lighter. Kind of like most things I drink are the same level as the PR blend.
Okay.
Same roast level.
So yeah, so they're just saying out there is that there was the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Coffee doesn't count.
No,
it's the opposite.
Not at all.
No, not these days.
Who knew? All right, there you go. So what? Now, kind of going around this a little bit, but just. And this could be a really involved answer, but you don't have to answer that involved. Just kind of sum it up. What makes a good coffee? Now, some would say that this is a subjective question, right? Well, I don't think so, because you're the expert. So it is now official.
Well,
make it official. What makes a good coffee?
Well, coffee's 99% water, so start with water.
Just like people.
Yeah. So first off, if you got bad water, it's not going to work. Then the reboilers. Yeah. Well, honestly, you can tell there is a difference.
Yeah.
And then if you can get filtered water or bottled water, it's even better because you don't want chlorine or too many minerals. But you don't want it completely mineral free because
so you don't want distilled.
No, that's too much. That's you distilled, it won't extract the same way. It needs some minerals in the water. So, then the next thing is obviously the coffee. You have to have a good quality grade of coffee, and then beyond that, it has to be ground correctly. If it's ground too fine, it's going to be bitter. If it's ground too large particles, it's going to extract weak. So you want.
So not too coarse of a grind, not too fine, like just the right grind. Right. Now, if you're making coffee at different methods, you want it to be different, though, right? You want a little more coarse for certain types of brewing methodologies and what fine?
Yeah, you definitely want to grind for how you're making.
So we just got like a couple examples, like the most extreme coarse and most extreme fine, and maybe one or two in the middle.
Right.
So what would those be? Like, what would be the most? What would
espresso is most definitely the finest grind. Then French press is probably the most or percolation, but I don't recommend percolation. But French press would be about as coarse as you want to get.
And then in the middle would kind of be
like a drip.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, interesting. Or the percolation, which you don't.
I don't like the percolation. It's just you're putting hot water through or hot coffee through used grounds over and over again, so it's
not ideal.
Yeah, it's not my
way to make 50 pots though, or 50 gallons, right?
You can make a lot in a short amount of time, but for home use, I guess
it tasted like you made a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's just not that good.
Yeah, fair enough. So then we already talked about the temperature. Someone had a question about ideal temperature to roast or temperature to brew. We talked about that 200 to 204.
Yeah, you really want it over 200 degrees, you know, because then you're getting a full extraction. You know, if it's in the 190s, the low 190s, then it starts. The cooler it gets, it's gonna get weaker.
And now, what about while we're talking temperature, roasting? So talk about roasting. So I know I've been out there before. We have a giant, big grinder, or big roaster, sorry. And then also there's little mini roasters. You could roast like a cup at a time, I guess, if you want, or a pot at a time. So what kind of temperature, does the temperature vary? Or does the duration vary? How do you get a lighter roast and a darker roast?
Well, the darker roast is mainly how hot you let the beans get. Although duration does play a part in the darkness of the roast. So basically, you're stopping the roast before you burn the coffee.
Okay.
So aside from that, then there's different applications of heat at certain points in the roast when the beans are at their first crack or their second crack. You know, if you back off the energy, it has a different effect on the beans. They're allowed the flavors mature.
So you said like first crack or second crack. What does that mean?
Well, that's when the beans themselves, there's an audible crack as you roast them as the bean actually expands and starts to break through the certain layers of the bean itself. And so
when you hear the crack, you make adjustments.
Well, you want to go into the crack a little easier. You don't you don't want to just blast it with heat. If you just turn it on full and go the whole way, nothing. The coffee doesn't develop if you use a little more finesse. It's like cooking.
Finesse early on, but then once we're past the crack, then we can just bore down.
No, I just kind of let it roll after that.
Okay.
But
There you go. Anything to add, John?
No, I think that's about right.
First crack, second crack.
Yep, you kind of know what degrees it's going to happen, so you know when to tone it back and let it ease in. And
yeah, so you don't stay at the same temperature the entire time.
No. In fact,
it's a very involved You don't set it and forget it. It's not the fucking George Foreman grill here. This is something you're on this bad boy, right?
Yeah, you need to, it's like cooking. You don't just blast everything. You react with the beans.
So different beans need different things. Some are like high altitude hard bean, or a lower altitude, so they have to be roasted different.
It's like a dance. You're like dancing with the bean.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
A
little give and take. Cha-cha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, awesome. So the couple of questions we've got in is one, the most common question we actually get a lot. We get this, as they say, how much coffee do I use? And I think there's a misconception with the PR blend because it has 50% more caffeine, about 50% higher caffeine content than a standard cup of coffee. People a lot of times ask, well, how much do I use? We tell them make it just like they would the regular coffee.
Yeah.
But then what is that from the expert's point? Like how much coffee do I use for one cup, or how much would I use for one pot?
Well, that's really a matter of taste for the most part. I mean, most places recommend that use 2 tablespoons per cup.
Dean always suggests when we do this how we brew it. He says, we're going to use 1 scoop. And I said, well, how big is that scoop? And he says, whatever scoop you grab, you use a scoop. And that works for us.
Well, a lot of places that serve coffee now actually weigh it out by the gram, and
really?
They weigh out the water, So I mean, you can make it as scientific as you want it.
So if you're to go by weight, like how much weight do you know? Like how much coffee per cup or per pot?
Well, for example, like a pot, like I say, 12-cup pot, like this Specialty Coffee Association recommends between 3 and 4 ounces of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. So but you're going to make it to the strength you want it.
Right.
And
does that seem like a lot to you, or not a lot?
Actually, it did at first, but no, it's not that much. It actually it makes a strong cup of coffee, but it
thick.
It doesn't. But it also isn't overpowering. It doesn't. It doesn't blow you away.
Yeah, I have a grinder. I grind every morning, so I just set the little timer on the grinder. Whenever it's done, that's what I use, and I got to go to the same spot every day. If that's not available, say I'm just going grounds, what I do is I just pour them into the filter until it looks like it's as full as I can get it without that shit getting everywhere. You know what I mean? Is that approximately the exact amount we should use?
That's the approximate amount that you should use because you obviously like your coffee very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, like Kristen likes a little milk in hers, and
Right.
she also likes it when the spoon just still stands straight up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, some mornings you want that extra punch too.
Well, like here at Caffeine Kilos HQ, we're all about productivity.
Right.
We're trying to get people fired up.
Yeah.
Right. So there we go. Yeah. So a lot of times the question like, oh, so you have a spoon in your coffee. Did you add a little milk? And no, that's actually the consumption method. Is it just you got a spoon? It's kind of like it's like you get a Jack in the Box milkshake.
Right.
You ever know the Oreo cookie shake? I mean, you got to use the straw as a spoon half the time to get it out of there, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
But not really.
Well, then you're moving coffee into the food too. It's a food, not just a beverage. So.
Well, then it's then we get the FDA involved, so that never happens.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well.
Yeah. Okay. And so back to kind of the roasting thing also is the light roasts. We talked about light versus dark a little bit. So I've heard it said, and part of the reason the PR blend is a lighter roast. One, we're actually a fan of light roast as well. Get more flavor out of the coffee. Doesn't taste burnt. We like that. But also, light roasts have more caffeine. I've heard that said a few different times. Can you, what is that? How does that really work? Is that true? Does a light roast have higher caffeine content, or does a dark roast have higher? How does that work?
Well, if you went gram per gram, yeah, that would be true.
Okay.
But the trickiness of that is that the dark roasts actually weigh less per their volume is greater.
Is that because they were? It's been roasted longer, so more liquids out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It loses weight. Up to 20% of its weight is lost in the roasting process. So when you go to grind it, the grounds take up more space. But most people do brew their coffee by weight. So if you have 2 ounces of coffee and 2 ounces of 2 ounces of dark roast and 2 ounces of light roast, it's not that great of a difference. I mean, it is a little, but perceptually, I'm not sure you'd really tell.
Okay, interesting. Well, there you go. And then, do you know why it is that the light roast has a little bit more caffeine? The same thing, the roasting process.
It's just not cooked
something,
down. Yeah, it's just the heat. It's not destroyed by the roasting. So there is more caffeine in the lighter.
Because less destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. A few more things here. Talk about the actual beans themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're grown different places all around the world.
Right.
Okay. So what makes like a good climate? Like what's the ideal climate for actually growing coffee beans?
Well, coffee really is only grown in the tropics, between the tropics. It's that band around the
equator.
Yeah, that's where the coffee grows. But then altitude plays an important part. It can't be, the lower, the higher up it's grown, the harder the bean, the more flavor that the bean is.
So flavor profiles vary.
Yeah.
So like higher altitude beans have higher flavor profiles, more flavor.
A lot of the time, yes.
And a lot of lower altitude beans have a little less flavorful.
They're softer, and a lot of the robustas are grown in the lower range.
So I wonder, do you know any idea why that is? Why the beans at higher altitude have more flavor? Is there like any theories on that?
I don't really have a theory. I would assume that it's just in some more austere environment, and so they need to extract those flavors from where they're growing.
Yeah, makes sense. I know like wine. They talk about wine grapes like in drier seasons, right? So like during the drought, the grapes during the drought actually a lot they're stronger.
Yeah.
Right, because they're not watered down as much.
Right.
They're thicker grapes because there's not as much water in them.
Exactly.
So when it's the same thing like the higher altitude, maybe are the beans a little smaller? I wonder, or maybe
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not as much. It's a
they're hard. Yeah,
environment.
it makes them harder, and
yeah. There you go. And then we're going to kind of circle back a little bit here. Is talked about different brewing methods, and we talked about mentioned espresso. We talked about that a little bit. Compared to coffee. So how does that actually break down? Because I know there's a belief, some people think that there's a type of beans. They're espresso beans. And there's regular coffee. So there's espresso and there's regular. But then it's a roast thing. You could make any coffee through an espresso maker. Does that make it espresso? But then if I take espresso coffee and make it in whatever French press, is then not espresso? So kind of, can you just, how does that whole thing work out?
well, to be espresso, it's more the way that it's made. It's the machine itself, the espresso machine. You know, really steaming hot. You know, water is forced at pressure through the grounds. That's what makes it espresso. The bean, it's the same coffee bean. Everybody blends the coffee for espresso, you know, because they want specific flavor notes. You know, you want fruity or you want a chocolatey note or something like that. So the beans are blended for the purpose of used in the espresso machine.
But you could use those beans or ground anyhow, and it's just coffee.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, depending on the blend, it could be really good, or it might not. You know, it's not going to be bad, but it's, you know.
So you could take like a regular coffee.
Absolutely.
It's like PR blend or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the Roaster Dave signature blend, and
Absolutely.
you just make it with an espresso maker, or through however you do that, maybe an AeroPress. We talk about it different ways. Yeah. However you make your espresso, and it's espresso.
Right. Yeah. It's the coffee can be used in those devices, and so yes, it in fact, it would make a nice espresso.
Yeah. There you go. All right, and not just ours specifically, but just that's a question in general. Because you go to the store and on the shelves it says espresso or and you kind of wonder, okay, so are these different? Same coffee, it's just the way it's blended. Maybe they would label it that way.
Right.
That's them. That's the man putting labels on the coffee.
Exactly. And some people think espresso is stronger, or you know, but it's really not. It's you know, espresso shouldn't be a real dark bean. It shouldn't be real oily. It should be, you know, the light to medium roast. And you're extracting, because it extracts in a more concentrated manner, so you're getting a lot of it takes a lot of flavor out of a small amount of coffee. So
that's why there's the caffeine content, like a shot of espresso is equivalent to like a cup of regular coffee, approximately. Mm-hmm. And that's because just the way it's extracted and the amount of coffee used, right? Not okay.
Yeah. It's just the extraction process. It takes a lot out because it's under pressure and heat. So it's just
great. One last thing, and this is actually a question straight from our Snapchat. Someone wanted to know. It said, "What's your opinion on?" And I haven't really heard of this, so maybe you haven't either, which would make the opinion easy. There is none. How do you feel about tea-infused coffee? Have you heard of that?
I have heard of people trying to do something to that effect. I haven't tried it, and I imagine, I'm not sure why you would want to do that, perhaps for antioxidants.
Right.
You know, that would be my only thought of why.
That made me think I have heard of people adding things to their coffee, like cinnamon.
Right.
So that's the thing, right? Like you can actually put your coffee in your, however you make it, say you're going to pour over, put your coffee in the filter, and then you can put some cinnamon in there and pour it over and add some cinnamon notes to your coffee.
Oh, sure you could. Yeah.
Is that like a thing? Do people do that type of stuff? I've heard of cinnamon. I haven't really heard of anything else. Do you know if people do that with anything else, or is that?
You know,
or did I just teach you something?
Well, you know,
we'll start a new series called "Teach the Expert."
No, I can't say as I don't know. Most people just add chocolates and things like that, but I don't know.
Like cocoa or something.
Yeah, but that's usually after the fact. It's not infused with it. So.
Not really a lot of experience putting it in with the grounds.
I mean, hickory's been mixed in with the grounds for years, but
reminds me of a poem my uncle used to tell me. It's Hickory Dickory Dock, and then I don't remember exactly how it goes after that.
It had something to do with a mouse going up the clock.
Oh yeah, no, that was it. Must be it.
Yeah, I don't remember the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Mouse and the clocks. Yeah, I thought it was. My uncle's a different one.
Yeah.
It had a little different twist on it.
It really didn't have anything to do with coffee.
No, not at all. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Any last words? Anything anything about coffee you'd like to just tell the people? Get it out there.
Drink more coffee. It's good for you.
Yeah. It's good for you. You heard it here from the experts themselves. All right, John, Dave, really appreciate you guys stopping in with us.
Thank you, Danny.
Anytime. All right. Thank you guys very much.
What's up, guys? I'm here with this week's drop. This week we got the men's Indigo Movement Tee with the gray font, Caffeine Kilos, the Lifestyle, the Movement USA on our 60/40 blended shirts. Available in sizes small through 3XL, so full size one on these. Perfect shirt for in and out of the gym. You know, favorite colorway of ours, honestly, that we came out with so far. So yeah, pick them up on caffeineandkilos.com.